Hey everybody, today we're going to be taking kind of a big bite out of things with one of the longer videos we've made in quite a while. This is going to be a top 20 video, top 10 separately of each list. It's going to be, the first half is going to be my top 10 favorite film animated characters versus my top 10 televised animated characters. You know, shows like The Simpsons versus like movies versus the Incredibles or you know other Pixar stuff. Let's go on. There's a lot to cover, and this may be a two-part video. Very well possible. Anyways, let's get to it. I try to cover a couple things with each entry, such as the voice actor, the film, the basic characteristics of that character's personality and their role in the film. As such, there might be a little bit of a spoiler warning in here. I might be telling you things about the film that give certain things away. So, since this is going to be a countdown on film characters, you might be able to uh, predict that there's a little bit of a spoiler warning. And obviously, don't say you weren't warned. Okay, number one on here is going to be from one of the earlier CGI movies, and that's Toy Story. The number one character on this list is going to be Buzz Lightyear. He's one of the main characters in the film. He's voiced by Tim Allen. He plays the role of Woody's best friend, and it's kind of neat to see a spaceman and a cowboy become friends. It's a good reminder that we all have something in common and can get along if we focus on that rather than the categorical differences that separate us, you know? Like we can all break bread, so to speak. Number two on this list is going to be Mewtwo, actually. This is the film half of the list, remember. So the first 10 of these are film characters, like I said, and then we'll get to the televised shows later on, you know, the Johnny Bravo, Scooby Doo, that kind of stuff. We'll get to that in the second half. Okay, so like I said, this is the film part of the list. I'm referring to the version of him dubbed by Dan Green in the American release of the anime film in 1998. I think the character had a lot of heart. I think that this was a great voice acting performance considering it was a re release and a dub of a Pokemon anime. You wouldn't think that would be the best source material in terms of looking for something heartfelt, or at least I wouldn't. Um, Anyways, yeah, especially the scene where Ash gets turned like into cement and all of their tears like revive him. I know that's really corny, but we're talking about animation here, so some of this stuff might be more kids things a little bit. But yeah, especially that scene where Ash pretty much gets turned into like solid wood and is like dead, and all their tears kind of like revive him. I think Mewtwo played a great villain in this movie, considering especially, like I said, that it was a English redubbing of a Pokemon movie. You wouldn't expect that to be good source material to produce an impressive performance character-wise. But I think that Dan Green should really be commended here because this is a hell of a voice acting performance here. Okay, let's go on to number three here. Number three on this list is one of the only, I think, the only shared spot on this whole list. This is going to be Copper and Todd from The Fox and the Hound. They're the two main characters from that movie. Mickey Rooney played Todd, and Kurt Russell played the hound dog Copper. The dichotomy between the two, as circumstance and societal expectations drive a wedge into their friendship, is very heartfelt. And this is a very impressive movie. I think it's one of Disney's best, in my opinion. Watching them grow apart is legitimately painful, and you want to root for their relationship. Also, Amos the Rancher kind of reminds me of the main character from I think it's the Netflix show The Ranch. I think it's played by Sam Elliott. Anyways, I think that this is a little bit of an underrated movie. And the work on these characters is why it deserves more attention than it gets. Sorry if it's a bit cheap to take up two slots, for one movie and for one set of characters. But I can't just pick one of these two because they really fill each other out. Anyways, let's get to number four on here. I don't think there's any more sharing spots on the list, so don't worry about that. But there is, like I said, 20 separate spots on this list, so we should cover everybody. Um, Hopefully. Uh, we won't get everybody, obviously, but number four on here is going to be the Iron Giant, the title character, the giant robot. I love the slow humanization of this character as he adapts and as he tries to fit in, only to go and more so fit the role you'd expect a giant Godzilla sized robot to fit, you know? He fills so many roles emotionally, and from a character perspective, I think that The Iron Giant is one of the best movies of the 90s. It's one of the, sorry, The Iron Giant is one of the best movies of the 90s. Sorry if that didn't come out quite right. There's a little bit of a typo there. Anyways, yeah, really underrated. And despite his gruff metal voice, um, watching him connect with the humanity of that little boy, I think his name was Hogarth, watching him connect with the humanity and try to bridge that gap, it made me tear up several times. The movie largely deals with his friendship with a human boy who saw him land, and he's like the only person other than the villain who's following them on behalf of like the government and stuff. He's like the only human who knows that the robot like exists. Anyways, he's actually played by Vin Diesel. I thought he was electronically modulated, so it's pretty interesting. They must have had to do a lot of processing, or they must have had to have him like talk through the end of like a long pipe or something. But yeah, I don't know how they got Vin Diesel to sound like that, but props to him. It was a heck of a movie. Next up is Scar from The Lion King, the main villain of The Lion King. He adds the depth and psychology to what might have otherwise just become a generic kids franchise instead of an animated classic. Jeremy Irons plays him. He's a veteran actor with a Tony and over 40 years of acting experience. His deep voice with that sinister accent fit the character perfectly, and I think that it really added the necessary depth, to give this movie some punch. Number six on here is going to be Syndrome from The Incredibles, played by Jason Lee. He's also the main villain in his film. He used to be like a Mr. Incredible like groupie or super fan, but he had no superpowers of his own, and he received no attention. So he got bitter, and he slowly became like a super villain that used technology and his knowledge of like science to compensate for the fact that he had no powers. Anyways, the origin of this character is kind of sad, and it adds a lot of dimension and depth to what also otherwise might have been a forgettable CGI happy superhero movie. There's a lot of movies like that have been just being poured out over the last couple of years. These CGI happy superhero movies, there's a ton of them. So I think Syndrome also added the necessary depth to The Incredibles, so it wasn't just a forgettable, bore fest. Not that the other characters were of poor quality or anything, but I think that he really added the serious note that this movie needed. Okay. Number seven on here is going to be the genie from the original 1992 Disney film Aladdin, starring, well, not starring, but in a side role is the legendary, irreplaceable Robin Williams. He's voice acting as the aforementioned genie, and apparently they got him to take this role because they had this joke about the genie growing a separate head to argue with himself, and it was supposed to be a take on Robin's comedy that involved his schizophrenia. So apparently that made Robin Williams laugh quite a bit, and so he took the part. Anyways, yeah, I think that only he could have really captured the frenetic energy of the aforementioned genie character. And we miss you, Robin Williams. No one will ever take your place. Anyways, Number 8 on here is collectively the hyenas from The Lion King. Their very diverse personalities made them funnier, and they almost had kind of a Three Stooges type effect. The three talented main actors that performed them were Whoopi Goldberg, Cheech Marin, and Jim Cummings. The hyenas also kind of acted as secondary villains and henchmen behind Scar. So they were an important part of the movie. You don't want to forget about them. And that was a good voice acting job. I think it's an underrated voice acting performance. Number 9 here is going to be Shrek, actually, from his titular movie Shrek, played by Mike Myers alongside Eddie Murphy as the donkey in the 2001 CGI movie. I think this was one of the earlier CGI movies, like towards the beginning, like when they were still doing like Toy Story and like Monsters Inc. This was one of the earlier CGI movies, and they assembled a hell of a cast. And this is probably the most heart and humanity that I've seen in an animated character, even though he's an ogre. I think honorable mentions go to John Lithgow as Lord Farquaad in the aforementioned Shrek. He was a great villain in that movie, and he could have easily gotten this spot. But Shrek was of equal quality and received more screen time. And, Mike Myers is very talented in his own right. I always think of Austin Powers when I think of him, or Dr. Evil. Okay, number 10 on here is going to be a little bit of a different direction. This is going to be a stop motion film, uh, but it's still animation if you think about it. The main character, Rocky Rhodes, um, he's kind of like a chicken version of Evel Knievel. He's voiced by like a pre-meltdown Mel Gibson. They're trying to escape all the chickens there. This ranch that they're on, and they're kind of anthropomorphized, but yet there's still this kind of like evil man, like evil like kitchen man with like a butcher knife that's chasing them. So it's still kind of on that fairy tale sort of level in terms of they're partially anthropomorphized, but not all the way. Anyways, this movie won tons of awards and was nominated for quite a few more than that actually. Chicken Run is I think the highest grossing animated stop motion animation film of all time. Anyways, yeah, it was a really impressive feat, I think, and also I think that this movie is a good reason to become vegetarian because it um, kind of humanizes those characters a little bit too much. You don't really want to eat chicken after watching Chicken Run. Anyways, at least I don't. Number 10, is we're actually starting on the second half of the list. The TV show top 10 animated characters is what I meant to say. Number 1 on here is going to be Fry / Philip J. Fry, the lazy New York pizza delivery boy that often goes by just Fry and travels forward in time to the future. It's similar to watching the Iron Giant kind of adapt to a completely unfamiliar way of life so clumsily, bumping around. He's voiced by the versatile Billy West on Simpsons creator Matt Groening's Futurama. Despite the distant time he's dropped into, the show is good at adding humanity to its various aliens and cyclopses and robots. It works because we can see ourselves in them, including the couch potato that is Fry. I think that everybody has had a job that kind of makes them act like that. Number 2 on here is going to be Tom the Cat from the slapstick duo Tom and Jerry. Sometimes these two did get a little bit too violent. No wonder where the Simpsons got Itchy and Scratchy cartoons from. Still, these two were an important part of animation history, and they've had a lengthy history despite changing studios several times. Tom didn't usually talk, and neither did Jerry, so I can't really tell you their voice actors. Occasionally, animators and other people from around the studio chipped in throwaway vocals like yells or grunts because they were constantly having stuff dropped on their feet or thrown at their heads or basically those pain exclamations. Okay, number three on here um, is going to be Phil and Lil, the fraternal twins on Rugrats. They're always together, they're always either conversating or arguing or something like that. So I had to put them on here together. I mean, they're twins, for God's sake. Anyways, yeah, they loved eating worms and insects and mud and other cringe-worthy things. I think that we all knew that one kind of gross kid when we were young, or we were that gross kid who would do particularly anything or eat anything for some attention. Um, yeah, I think that that kind of reminds me of those toddler years. Anyways, they're both voiced by Kath Soucie, and I think that they kind of capture the spirit of those early childhood years very well. A little bit better than the other babies who were a little bit too cut and paste for me, too generic. Like Tommy didn't have a whole lot of personality, in my opinion. I think Phil and Lil were a little bit more unique. Anyways, I'm going to bow out here. We'll resume in a part two. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys soon. Love you guys. Goodbye.